As I talked about in many videos this week, the British government wants to overturn the Brexit rules for Northern Ireland by means of a law. Now, the United States is getting involved in the dispute and is warning London of serious consequences. The USA has taken sides in the Brexit dispute between Great Britain and the European Union in favor of Brussels. US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has warned of an escalation in the dispute over Northern Ireland's Brexit status. If the British government does not comply with the protocols agreed with Brussels, it would also jeopardize free trade relations between the United States and Great Britain, they said in a statement. If London decides to undermine the Northern Ireland Agreement, the US Congress will not support a bilateral free trade agreement with the UK. The British have been threatening for a long time to overturn the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol. It is intended to avoid border checks between the north of the Emerald Isle and Ireland in order to prevent conflicts between supporters and opponents of Irish unity. In return, however, a customs border has been created between the north and the rest of the United Kingdom. The British government and the Unionist party DUP therefore fear that the north will become alienated from London. However, Brussels strictly refuses to change the protocol. If the British circumvent the protocol, the European Union would see this as a breach of international law, rightly so by the way, and threaten the consequences. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss recently announced a new law designed to circumvent the Northern Ireland Protocol. Pelosi now fears a trade war. Should the UK choose to undermine the Good Friday Agreement, the US Congress cannot and will no longer support a free trade agreement with the UK. In the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, the USA, Ireland and Great Britain settled the decades-long violent conflict in the north. From Pelosi's point of view, the new British law would again provoke tensions in the region. The dispute over the protocol is currently causing political paralysis in the north. In protest against the Brexit rules agreed with the EU for the north, the most important party on the unionist side, the DUP, is refusing to work in the parliament of the region, and it's called the Northern Ireland Assembly. Ireland's Prime Minister, the Taoiseach Martin, accuses the British government of acting unfairly in the dispute over Brexit rules. Great Britain wants to undermine parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol and in doing so also snubs the EU. The Irish Prime Minister, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin, accuses the British government of unfair action in the dispute over Brexit rules for the North. The current British government has gone too far. That's what Martin told the BBC during a visit to Belfast. Great Britain's Foreign Minister Liz Truss announced this week, as I said, that she wanted to overturn parts of the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol with the EU in order to remove hurdles for companies in the British part of the island that it still is. And the EU had reacted outraged. Tensions feared between Ireland and the North because of the protocol is intended to avoid a hard border. And there is, seriously, that could fuel tensions in the former Civil War region again after many years if there is a border. However, goods between Great Britain and the North must now be checked. Supporters of close ties between the North and the United Kingdom, also known as Unionists, fear that this will, as I said, alienate and decouple from London. And that's not the way to negotiate with the EU, criticized the Irishman Martin. Professional, serious talks are the only way to solve the crisis. Criticism of Unionists is quite there, and Martin also criticized the DUP because they're currently blocking the formation of the planned unity government with the Republican side after the regional election in protest against the Northern Ireland Protocol. In the elections in Northern Ireland a good 2 weeks ago, the Irish nationalist Sinn Féin party, which used to be a political arm of the paramilitary Irish Republican Army, better known as the IRA, and they won for the first time in the history of the North. The DUP first wants to form a cabinet in Belfast if the UK government changes or abolishes post-Brexit customs rules for Northern Ireland. After the peace agreement of 1998, the so-called Good Friday Agreement, the Unionists and the Nationalists must form the government together. DUP chairman Jeffrey Donaldson sharply criticized the Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, because Pelosi had warned the government in London that a unilateral escalation of the dispute over the Brexit rules for the North would risk the trade pact with the United States. The Brexit supporters around Prime Minister Boris Johnson are striving for such a deal, and for a long time now. If London decides to undermine this agreement, the US Congress will not support a bilateral free trade agreement with Great Britain. And I have to bring that up again because Pelosi wrote that in a statement. The so-called Northern Ireland Protocol protects the important stability in the former Civil War region that the Good Friday Agreement brought in 1998. That's Pelosi's opinion and mine as well. Donaldson said the Northern Ireland Protocol itself undermines the peace process because it threatens the key principles of the Good Friday Agreement, and that is complete bullshit. But Donaldson said if Nancy Pelosi wants the agreement protected, she needs to recognize that it is protocol that damages and undermines the agreement. I don't know what drugs this guy is taking, but I don't want some of those. But there are also somewhat funnier or even embarrassing developments for Boris Johnson. We knew that's going to happen, but now it happened. The fact that British Prime Minister Johnson's father was against Brexit caused a smile years ago. Now Stanley Johnson can fully enjoy the benefits of the EU again. He now has a French passport. So British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's father became French. The application by Stanley Johnson in November was granted and he received French citizenship on Wednesday. That's what the Ministry of Justice in Paris said. The reason given was that Stanley Johnson's mother was French. However, since Stanley himself has not lived in France for more than 50 years, his citizenship has expired due to non-use. Upon application and reference to his connection to France, he has now been granted citizenship, as provided for by the rules, the Ministry of Justice explained. The French consul in London will personally hand Johnson his certificate of citizenship. Citizenship has no impact on Stanley's children, and thus on Boris Johnson. Incidentally, his son Boris was born in New York and thus had US citizenship for a long time. But he gave that up a few years ago, partly for tax reasons. I'm very happy once again I'm a member of the European Union, which is very good, said Father Johnson. It's not about becoming French, he said. Well, according to the Guardian newspaper. If I got it right, I am French. My mother was born in France. Her mother was entirely French and her grandfather was entirely French. So for me, it's just a matter of claiming what I already have, he said. Stanley Johnson had criticized his son's Brexit course and also campaigned for Great Britain to remain in the EU, while his son Boris campaigned with a promise to leave. Later, however, the Prime Minister's father also expressed support for the exit. Stanley Johnson used to work at the World Bank and was also an MEP in Brussels for a few years. He also campaigns for nature conservation. And here in Germany too, many naturalizations followed the Brexit referendum in 2016. According to official figures, well over 30,000 people from Great Britain living in Germany took on German citizenship. In 2019 alone, according to the Federal Statistical Office, there were 14,600, slightly more than in the 2 previous years combined. In 2020, there were almost 5,000 again. Anyone who had lived in Germany long enough and received a German passport before the actual exit on January 1st, 2020, was allowed to keep the British passport due to an exception and thus received dual citizenship. So, just saying so much about the evil EU and the evil EU member states that want to punish the British. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.